Welcome to our Hong Kong Brief Show, where we serve up the latest scoops with a side of light-hearted commentary. Today, we've got a mix of ambition, caution, and a sprinkle of nostalgia on our news platter. First up, in the realm of electric dreams and lithium beams, top Chinese lithium firms Tianqi Lithium and Ganfeng Lithium are boldly planning to expand despite a recent profit slump. It seems like they're charging ahead with plans to increase market share and production capacity, eyeing global reserves to ensure they stay ahead in the electric vehicle revolution. Meanwhile, Dr. Gao Yaojia, a trailblazing whistleblower who exposed the dark underbelly of China's AIDS epidemic, has passed away at 95 in New York. Her courageous efforts in the early 90s shed light on a devastating health crisis, earning her recognition but also persecution back home. A true hero's journey that reminds us of the high costs of speaking truth to power. Over in the financial world, while China hits the pause button on IPOs, India, Korea, and Japan are picking up the pace, ready to sprint down the IPO track. South Korea's HD Hyundai Marine Solution Company is making waves as it seeks to raise a hefty sum, and India's Bajaj Housing Finance Ltd is eyeing a billion-dollar debut. Meanwhile, Japan's discount store chain operator, Trial Holdings Incorporated, is showing that sometimes, less is more when it comes to winning investor hearts. And let's not forget the venture capital scene, where Singapore and Indonesia are becoming the hotspots for startup investments, promising a mix of fintech innovation and green economy ventures. So, whether it's the ambitious expansion of lithium giants, the poignant story of a brave whistleblower, or the bustling IPO and venture capital scene in Asia, there's never a dull moment in the world of news. Please stay tuned for the detailed coverage on these stories and more. Top China lithium firms look past profit slump and vow expansion. Bloomberg. Despite a sharp drop in profits due to plummeting lithium prices, Chinese lithium giants Tianqi Lithium and Ganfeng Lithium are planning to increase their market share and expand production capacity. Both companies are looking to acquire global reserves of lithium and develop low-cost resources such as lithium derived from brine. The positive outlook from Chinese firms comes as other companies around the world are scaling back production and spending due to improved supply prospects and slowing demand growth for electric vehicles. The longer-term demand outlook for lithium remains strong as the global energy transition gains momentum, creating opportunities for consolidation in the industry. The high cost of being a whistleblower in China. Al Jazeera. Dr. Gao Yaojia, a retired Chinese gynecologist and whistleblower who exposed the source of China's AIDS epidemic in the early 1990s, has died in New York at the age of 95. She became alarmed when she began to see patients in Hunan province with tumors that she knew were common symptoms of AIDS, and few had been tested for HIV, let alone diagnosed, until she insisted. She discovered that the plasma trade, particularly prevalent among impoverished villagers who needed to supplement their income, had become a vector for transmission. Even the Chinese Red Cross and its People's Liberation Army-run hospitals became involved in the blood business. Many people were infected with HIV because dirty needles were routinely reused to draw blood. She exposed the scandal and was subsequently persecuted by the authorities in China. Dr. Gao's fight to expose the source of transmissions and to stop the blood trade was recognized by the central government, and she was allowed to travel to the US to receive an award. India, Korea, and Japan to stay busy with IPOs while China stalls. Bloomberg. New share sales in the Asia-Pacific region fell to $11 billion in Q1 2022, the lowest in 2 years, and a 46% drop from the same period last year. The slowdown was largely due to Beijing's increased scrutiny of domestic IPOs and concerns about China's economy. However, there is expected to be a pickup in IPO activity from South Korea, India, and Japan, while Chinese deals are likely to remain sparse. In South Korea, marine services company HD Hyundai Marine Solution Company is seeking to raise up to $551 million in the largest IPO in Seoul since 2022. In India, several offerings bigger than $100 million are expected, including a potential $1 billion IPO by Bajaj Housing Finance Limited. In Japan, the strong performance of discount store chain operator Trial Holdings Incorporated following its IPO may boost sentiment for other newcomers. However, Hong Kong is expected to continue experiencing a drought in IPO activity. Hong Kong FA Chief Fok refuses to commit to league overhaul, rejects criticism. South China Morning Post. The chairman of the Hong Kong Football Association, Eric Fok Kaishan, has called for improvements to the city's domestic football competitions. However, he did not provide specific details on how the standard could be raised and instead challenged the media to cover the game more positively. Fok's comments came after head coach Jorn Anderson criticized the state of the game locally, saying the standard is too low for international football. Top-flight clubs have also called for the FA to share control of the domestic game, claiming the association lacks the knowledge and ability to promote local football. Venture capital seeks safe bets in startup leader Singapore, Indonesia. South China Morning Post. Investors are expected to pour more money into Southeast Asia's startups this year, but they will be looking for safer bets and proven profitability. In 2023, billions of dollars retreated from the region's startups due to global economic turmoil, causing the flow of outbound cash to dry up. However, this year, experts say some of that money will return, but investors will be more selective and cautious. Fintech, e-payments, online sales, and ride-hailing are expected to dominate the region's funding rounds, while the green economy offers new opportunities. Singapore remains the most attractive destination for startups and venture capital in the region, but Indonesia is becoming more investor-friendly and is powered by a vast and increasingly connected population. Indonesia is currently home to around 2,300 startups, 14 of which are unicorns. Malaysia is promoting itself as an ideal launch pad for tech startups, offering a soft landing for foreign startups to build their regional operations before entering the wider Southeast Asian market. Asian stocks set to gain as Fed awaits more data, markets wrap. Bloomberg. Asian equity markets are expected to open higher following the Federal Reserve's announcement that it will not rush to cut interest rates and will wait for more evidence that inflation is under control. Futures contracts for the Nikkei 225 index are pointing higher, while trading remains closed in Australia and Hong Kong due to holidays. In China, the official Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index expanded in March for the first time since September, suggesting that the country's economy has maintained traction after a solid start to the year. First FT, Shine posts record profits in 2023 ahead of planned listing. Financial Times. Chinese online fast fashion giant Shine has seen its profits more than double as it awaits regulatory approval from Beijing to proceed with its planned IPO in New York or London. Shine recorded over $2 billion in profits for 2023 and approximately $45 billion in gross merchandise value. The IPO is expected to be the largest of the year and is seen as a test of Beijing's attitude towards companies that were originally founded in China but have since reincorporated overseas to avoid geopolitical tension. U.S. imposes visa restrictions on Hong Kong officials in response to tough security law. ABC. The United States is set to impose new visa restrictions on several Hong Kong officials in response to the Chinese government's crackdown on rights and freedoms in the territory. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that China has taken actions against Hong Kong's promised autonomy and democratic institutions, including the introduction of a new national security law. The officials who will be targeted have not been named. The U.S. has previously imposed visa restrictions and other sanctions on Hong Kong officials, and has ended the special economic treatment that the territory previously received under U.S. law. China has criticized the move, stating that it interferes in its internal affairs. Shine and Temu are driving oil, not GM and Toyota. Bloomberg. China's growing oil consumption is primarily driven by the country's aggressive move to develop its petrochemical sector, displacing demand that was previously served by imports. The shift from fuels to chemical feedstocks is likely to result in a decline in emissions ahead of a peak in liquid fuels usage. However, the influx of low-cost Chinese products in Europe has become a major issue for chemicals producers, and there is uncertainty as to whether global consumption of plastics will catch up with supply. Should the global chemical sector shut down, it could mark the beginning of oil's decline. A welcome display of power as lawmakers check funds request. SCMP opinion. The Hong Kong government has withdrawn a 7.16 billion Hong Kong dollars, $921 million, funding request for a major highway project following questions raised by lawmakers. The decision comes as the authorities seek to focus on economic development in the city. Lawmakers questioned the significant increase in costs from 1.1 billion Hong Kong dollars in 2006 and the absence of a completion timetable. The move highlights that the Legislative Council cannot be assumed to be a rubber stamp for the government, as there have been concerns about the lack of critical scrutiny since electoral reforms were imposed by Beijing. Hong Kong International Touch Championships showcase alternative rugby future. South China Morning Post. Touch rugby is becoming increasingly popular in Hong Kong as concerns grow over the long-term injuries sustained in traditional high-impact rugby. The sport is being introduced in schools as a way to teach rugby skills without the risk of head injuries, with more than 2,000 players taking part in the city's summer league last year, compared to fewer than 200 when touch rugby began in Hong Kong in 1988. The sport is seen as a way to introduce children to rugby and encourage them to play the traditional 15-a-side version of the game. China home sales drought persists with little hint of turnaround. Bloomberg. China's home sales continue to slump, with the value of new home sales declining by 46% from a year earlier to 358 billion Chinese yuan, $49.6 billion, in March. This followed a 60% decline in February. The slump in property sales has weighed on the country's largest builders and has eroded the balance sheets of the largest state-owned banks. Fitch Ratings has also downgraded the credit rating of some builders into junk territory, including Bank and Longfor Group Holdings. Hong Kong's men avenge Fogo Japan loss, but women lose crown at Lacrosse Open. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong's men's lacrosse team won the Lacrosse Open, defeating arch-rivals Fogo Japan 8-5. This was Hong Kong's third attempt at winning the tournament, after losing to Fogo Japan in the 2023 and 2019 finals. Lam Wuihei scored twice for Hong Kong in the victory. In the women's tournament, Hong Kong lost 13-7 to Japanese side second-era leaders of lacrosse, failing to retain their title. Despite the loss, Hong Kong's women's team put up a good fight, with goalkeeper Hong Kong's Sally Yunaching making several impressive saves. Hong Kong's Urban Renewal Authority to relax tender rules, borrow cash. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong's Urban Renewal Authority, URA, plans to relax tendering rules and borrow from external sources following a rare deficit of 3.5 billion Hong Kong dollars, $447 million, in the previous financial year. URA Managing Director Wai Chi-sing said the changes would help attract more developers to make bids and align the tendering schedule with cash flow timing. Projects to be completed in the next 5 years, including those already started, would cost about 80 billion Hong Kong dollars, Wai said, adding that the URA had an accumulated surplus of about 37 billion Hong Kong dollars that could be used to subsidize loss-making projects. Miserable, Hong Kong restaurants lament drop in business over Easter holiday. South China Morning Post. Restaurants in Hong Kong have experienced a significant drop in business during the Easter holiday compared to last year, as residents head across the border to spend and landlords increase rent. One restaurant owner said that the atmosphere had been downbeat, prompting him to close on the third day of the 4-day Easter holiday. Some Hong Kongers are staying in the city to save money amid the economic downturn, despite others choosing to travel to mainland China during the long weekend. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email,